You didn't think I'd miss out on making a video for the Super Bowl, did you? Come on. This is Marvel Stadium. Not quite New Orleans, not quite the Superdome, but here in Melbourne, we will be having the biggest Super Bowl party right where I'm standing right here. And on this episode, we will be previewing the Super Bowl, the Eagles and the Chiefs, Super Bowl 59, right here on Hot Sport. Hello, everybody, and welcome along to the NFL show on Austin. We are less than 24 hours away from Sunday night Eagles playing the Chiefs in New Orleans, guys. I am so pumped, especially because my team is involved in this game, the Eagles. As you know, as I have said, for those of you who have been watching along all year, I expected this team to end up right here where we are right now against the team who's always on this stage, the Kansas City Chiefs, who are looking for their epic three-peat, something that has never been achieved in the history of this game. And we're now in the 59th year, close to 60 years now of Super Bowl football. And no one has ever won the Super Bowl 100 times in a row. No one has ever been to 5 Super Bowls in the space of 6 years. So the Kansas City Chiefs are definitely doing so historical stuff. But look, we got a lot to get into this year. So many storylines, so many connections. And we're going to break it down for you. Who I believe will win the Super Bowl. We're going to get you covered on along as well with the betting and everything like that. But make sure you're liking the video. Make sure you're subscribing to Hot Sport, guys. This is the grand finale. This is the big stage. Like, we're finally here. Super Bowl. It's absolutely incredible. And look, we're going to discuss the journeys of these two teams, in a moment. But first, I just want to revel in the fact that, look, we've been shooting Hot Sport since the preseason, since week 1. We've covered every single week. Of course, we didn't quite do videos for the playoffs. This was kind of the video I was waiting to do just because there's just not a lot to talk about. I mean, there's a lot to talk about the playoffs. But, if you were watching the reels on Instagram, on my TikTok, you will see how I felt as that was going on. But yeah, look, there's so much talking. There's so much talking in the media, and I get it. This is all about Patrick Mahomes. This is all about the Kansas City Chiefs. And fair enough, because what they're doing is nothing short of spectacular. So let us get into our previews of the Super Bowl, each team, starting with the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, so let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, the NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles, the team of my heart. Not necessarily the biggest love in the world. My biggest love is reporting this video, but no, but my football team. And I just kind of want to take you on a journey of this football team and how they've kind of gotten to this point. And I think it needs to begin with the last time they were in the Super Bowl, at Super Bowl 57. Jalen Hurts had a nearly MVP season. The Philadelphia Eagles, built by Howie Roseman, seemed to have been on a collision course to become the champions. And I believe in that game against Kansas City, I thought they were very, very good early on. But, in the second half, a lot of miscommunications on defense, and Patrick Mahomes came back from behind and they won that Super Bowl, and the rest is history. And since then, a lot has changed in Philly. Of course, they go on to draft Jalen Carter, the next coming draft, Nolan Smith, who's made a big impact on the Eagles. But came the backslide, and the backslide What I call it the backslide. Some people call it the supernatural funk. Other people would like to call it the meltdown, the Chernobyl meltdown, is how Dan Taylor would say. And I think that shaped a lot of kind of the way the Eagles persevered through the tough times. Everyone doubted this team going in. Everyone was nervous. Everyone thought this team would be able to stop anyone on defense. And lo and behold, how the season has changed. The Eagles now come into the Super Bowl as the number one rated defense throughout the entire NFL season. They brought in new defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, and he changed everything in Philadelphia on the defensive side of the ball. Unsung heroes such as Zach Bond brought in just to be a special teams guy in free agency, ends up becoming an all-pro middle linebacker. Should have been the defensive player of the year. Look at the rookies that made an impact this season. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and then Nakobe Dean, who had a resurgence after everyone gave up on him. He had a fantastic year. Now, he will not be featuring in the Super Bowl due to injury, but who will be featuring in the Super Bowl due to injury is a bunch of world champion Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, take a look at the likes of Jalen Carter, who I mentioned at the start of this video in terms of a draft pick that changed the Eagles' fortunes. Nolan Smith, who is a big part of that team, and Jordan Davis as well. This Eagles defense is young, and it's built under this new coordinator, and they've been absolutely dominant this season. But on the other side of the football, the what everybody wants to talk about is, of course, the big addition in this offseason, which was Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley has been nothing short of phenomenal. He is the number one player, I believe, that Kansas City Chiefs are going to have to be afraid of and look out for and game plan for. Saquon Barkley is 30 yards away. This is a fun fact, historical fact, from becoming the leader in rushing yards in a single season, combined postseason and regular season. It's over 2,000 yards in the regular season. He will break Terrell Davis's record, having the best running back season ever. And Terrell Davis walked away with the Super Bowl MVP that year. I believe it was in 1998. And I believe that Saquon Barkley could run away with that similar sort of title. It's like a repeat of history, I believe, could be coming down the pike here. And then there's Jalen Hurts, the absolute leader of this football team, underestimated by many, but he is such a man. He is so well poised, such a winner. He finds any single way to win. He is always even keeled, and this team rallies around him. Look, I got to throw some stats at you for Jalen Hurts this year that I wanted to say, because look, a lot of people have been talked about the Eagles passing game, and yes, they were ranked 29th overall in passing. But the Eagles actually were 8th overall in offense and 7th overall in points per game. But Jalen Hurts, this was his career best year throwing the football accurately. He actually threw for 68.7%. It's his career best completion percentage. And he was his career best. He only threw 5 interceptions. And if the Eagles are to win this Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts is going to have to be clean with the football. He made a huge mistake in that last Super Bowl, the fumble. And this time around, I think he knows that it is a key to him, to his success with the Eagles this season. And I'm going to close on my Eagles portion of this by talking about Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni, much maligned. Everyone automatically believes that this man is not a great coach. He's now coaching his second Super Bowl as an Eagles coach. He has this team playing for each other. He is an incredible motivator. And nobody has won more football games in the last 3 seasons than Nick Sirianni. And his legacy would change with a Super Bowl here. He would become the Eagles' greatest ever coach, having coached them to a Super Bowl like Doug Peterson, but with 2 appearances and the winning percentage that is through the roof. This is an Eagles team that has been the best team in football all year, and one that I believe has been underestimated and that will cause many problems for the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, so let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. And they are back in the Super Bowl to defend their title, defend their back-to-back title, actually. I should have said back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions. and their journey is simple. They're chasing history, and let's sit here before and talk about them because they deserve to be here in this game. I mean, they're practically hosting this game. It's the Chiefs versus who's next, right? It's sort of like that old bully in the jail, and they're like beat up one guy, and he goes, "All right, who's next?" And it seems as if the Eagles are back for more. um, After, of course, as you mentioned, these two teams, this is a rematch, and they played each other 2 seasons ago in Super Bowl 57. But look, let's write off some of the historic, and I think I'm gonna more talk about the three-peat and the history part of this more than their season. But I will cover some of their season in terms of the journey for them to get here. So look, this is the eighth team in the history of the NFL now that has gone back to back. I think that was established at the end of last season. So the eighth team that had the opportunity. So the eighth team. Chiefs are the ninth team. My apologies. Um, to have won back to back Super Bowls, and the ninth team that has the opportunity now to go ahead and win a three-peat, but they have the chance to do it. But they are the first team of all of those nine to have made it to the Super Bowl looking for the three-peat. This is the closest. Whether it happens or not tomorrow, this is the closest anybody's ever going to get to history. This is probably the greatest dynasty in terms of at a single cluster of seasons. You have the New England Patriots who did it over a long period of time. They won three, then there was a 10th stretch, and then they won three of four or three of five, I believe, or something like that, with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Now, the for five Super Bowl appearances in 6 seasons. This is the only team in NFL history to ever accomplish that. Patrick Mahomes is still at the age of 29. If he were to win the Super Bowl, it would be his fourth Super Bowl championship, which would basically make him the greatest quarterback in his 20s in the history of the NFL. More than Tom Brady, who's currently tied with, who had three Super Bowls in the part of his career with the Patriots. Patrick Mahomes, basically, since his second season, his first season as a starter, Patrick Mahomes the champion. His second season as a starter, he was a Super Bowl champion. So it tells you a lot about how great he is, why everyone has so much respect for him. And now we're talking about it 2 championships later and a potentially on the cusp of a fourth for a kid. For Andy Reid, a Super Bowl coach, who of course used to coach the Birds. 21 seasons he went without a Super Bowl, coaching in the NFL without a Super Bowl title. His 21st season, he won his first. That was his second trip to the Super Bowl. His first was way back in Super Bowl 39 with the Philadelphia Eagles against the Patriots. That team that seems to come a lot into this conversation, but I guess you can see what we're talking about here. Look, this Chiefs team has got full of Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers. You got to say Patrick Mahomes is a future Hall of Famer. Andy Reid be a future Hall of Famer. The defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, will definitely be a future Hall of Famer. We're talking about a defensive coordinator who has won 2 Super Bowls already with the Giants before now being the defensive coordinator for 3 Super Bowl titles with the Chiefs. That's five. He's got a 5 rings on his hand, making him probably the most successful D coordinator in the history of the NFL. And who else? Travis Kelce. Now, a lot to many people. Travis Kelce has now become famous for being the boyfriend of Taylor Swift. But Travis Kelce is probably most likely going to go down as the greatest tight end in the history. And he is such a weapon, one that the Eagles are going to have to really be aware of on Sunday. But however, one thing that I find interesting is that this season, I do believe that Travis Kelce has had probably his worst season as a pro. I think he's lost some of his his speed, but yet he's still also reliable. And I expect another big game on Sunday. Look, the Chiefs this season, like we talk about, how they had Tyreek Hill early on. The Chiefs this season, had so many injuries that they overcome. I just want to talk about that for a second. Isaiah Pacheco, we will be featuring this game. Missed a whole bunch of the season through injury. And Kareem Hunt, a former Chief, who was kind of exiled due to a lot of legal issues, brought back many years later, and he's made a huge impact in the run game for the Chiefs this season. And he scored big touchdowns as well in the playoffs as well for the Chiefs. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be playing in his first Super Bowl. Of course, long time Houston Texan, and made an impact, I believe, in Arizona not long after being traded with Kyler Murray. Played the last kind of season and a half in Tennessee, and now finally, after maybe a couple of years ago, almost being a Chief, he is a Chief, and kind of during the latter part of his career, has an opportunity to play in a Super Bowl and they win a Super Bowl. Hollywood Brown, who is again another teammate, former teammate of Hopkins in Arizona. They were actually the pair in Arizona under Kyler Murray. Now they're the pair for Patrick Mahomes here. With an injury, of course, to Rashee Rice, who is the top receiver in this team. He's not going to be featuring. And Xavier Worthy, who had a massive impact in the AFC Championship game as a rookie. And he's got pace to burn, and he is going to be a threat for the Eagles secondary. Absolutely. But yeah, look, if the Chiefs were to win this game, it would be something historic. It would be the very first ever team to win 3 Super Bowl titles in a row. Uh, and look, the Patriots were the closest team, by the way, the other one. And this is kind of want to talk about it, with talking about it coming back to the Eagles a little bit here in this section, although, we've talked about them. But in 2017, the New England Patriots were defeated by the Eagles. Tom Brady, one of the greatest players of all time, probably the greatest quarterback of all time. Uh, you know, they had won Super Bowl 51 and Super Bowl 53 and Super Bowl 52 in the middle. Nick Foles and the Eagles came and spoiled them. So the Eagles do play the role as kind of like the three-peat busters historically in the NFL, and they here come back to try to spoil the three-peat this time. It's going to be an incredible game coming up on Sunday, and we'll be covering it in the wrap-up. We'll kind of tell you what I believe, how this game will unfold. All right, so we've talked about the teams. We've talked about the Eagles, their journey, the Chiefs, their, their mission for absolute history. And now I'm just kind of going to give you guys my analysis, is my feelings going into this football game. And it might be different than a lot of people. I'm just going to start by saying this. A lot of people simplify Super Bowls when the Kansas City Chiefs are involved. They always like to talk about Andy Reid. Andy Reid on a bye. Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is always going to be great. I can't bet against the Chiefs. I can't bet against Mahomes. And I just feel like you're not looking deep enough into this football game if that's what you're basing your picks off of. And of course, you're going to look at me and my jersey and be like, look at this guy, absolute bias, Eagles fan, but, I got to kind of stick with, it's not just my ego. By the way, I challenge myself. I like to be biased. I like to be correct. And I get dug deep into the stats. I have my whole sheet here of all the stats comparing these two teams. And we're kind of going to just break down the matchups here at where I feel like it will all break down. Look, if we look into the statistics here for the Chiefs, and this is kind of my point here for the Chiefs. I hate to, after bigging him up in my last segment here, to kind of tear them down or give you a reason why I believe that they're not going to win this game. And I'm going to make that kind of clear. This is kind of the way direction I'm going in this video. But look, everyone can talk about the Chiefs and what they've achieved in Super Bowls past, how it's hard to play Mahomes, how great Mahomes is in the playoffs. But I believe that, you're doing a disservice to the team that I believe has been the better performer all the way across the board here. Let's dig deep into Patrick Mahomes for a second. And let's talk about it. We did about Hurts in my Eagles segment. I'll talk about now with Mahomes for a little bit. Mahomes this year, this is the stats. He has had his second worst quarterback rating in his career this season, 67.7, which actually is still better than Hurts this season. But his passer rating is 95.5, which is his second worst as well in his career. This is his career worst in passing yards. Yeah, his career worst, tied for his career worst in mathematical touchdowns. And he was sacked 36 times this season, the most in his career, and threw 11 picks. Now, if you compare it to Jalen Hurts, who played in even less ball games because of his injury, Jalen Hurts had only 5 interceptions, as I mentioned before. Patrick Mahomes has almost doubled Jalen Hurts this season in interceptions. It has not been the best, most premium Patrick Mahomes. Now, you got to say, in the playoffs, he still got him his team year, regardless of the stats that I just read out. But the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles across the board. Look at this. The Chiefs, 17 overall in yards per game total offense. 16th in total offense, 17th in yards per game. Put that versus the Eagles defense, who is first in yards per game. So you're talking about the 17th best offense in yards versus the first best defense in yards versus in the passing, the great unstoppable passing game of Patrick Mahomes, 14th in the NFL. That's almost middle of the pack. Versus the Eagles defense, first in the NFL against the pass. They've only allowed 174 yards average to the opponents through the air. Okay, on the ground, the Chiefs. Okay, they're middle of the pack on the in the pass. On the ground, they're 22nd overall in the NFL on the ground, where the Eagles are 10th overall against the run. And in points allowed, right? The Chiefs are 15th in points per game, the 15th, again, middle of the pack, while the Eagles have only allowed 17.8 points per game on average throughout the entirety of the season. And that even gets more compounded when we start talking about the numbers in the postseason. So look, I believe where this game is won and lost is in the trenches. I believe that this Eagles offensive line is something that people just, and I'm going to do it because nobody's done it in their analysis this whole year, except for, of course, Dan Cilio, who I listen to very well, and credit to him. Me and him don't agree on a lot, but I feel like he's done a great analysis on this game as the weeks have gone by. Of course, being someone who covers the team so deeply for how many years he has. But this Eagles O line is historic. We're talking about Jordan Mailata, Australia's Jordan Mailata, and Lane Johnson, probably the best pair of tackles there are in the NFL. Interior guard Mekhi Becton and Landon Dickerson have been immense, especially in the role they have played in Saquon Barkley doing what he's been able to do this season as a Philadelphia Eagle. And of course, everyone thought with Jason Kelsey having retired, and I should have mentioned that in my Eagles segment. Everyone thought the Eagles' O-line would not be the same, but no, Cam Jurgens in his first season as starter in Philly has been a Pro Bowler. The stats are incredible. They're historic on this offensive line. And it's something that I think that the Chiefs are going to have a hard time coping with. Yes, Chris Jones is incredible, and everyone's telling me how he's going to end up in the backfield sacking Hurts. The only way that is going to happen is if if the moment is too much for him, if he's holding onto the ball too much in the pocket. And of course, Steve Spagnuolo is going to try to, counteract and try to put pressure on Jalen Hurts. Absolutely. His blitz percentage of Steve Spagnuolo is highest of any defensive coordinator of the history of the NFL. And it is something that the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe, would look. It's something the Eagles struggle with sometimes, which is our ability to Hurts' ability to pick up the blitz. But this season, I think he's been much improved in that area, in terms of not just necessarily the sacks, but in terms of his ability to sort of, throw in the run, get himself out of pressure, and still make plays for the Birds. And of course, the Eagles that's when we switch it offense to defense now. The Eagles, Saquon Barkley, and the Eagles have the second best rushing offense in the league. And this is where kind of it goes mano a mano because the Chiefs are 8th overall on rushing defense, and they have been number 1 overall in rushing defense in the postseason. So it is kind of, the clash of the Titans in terms of that. And look, the Eagles' offense, eighth overall, eighth overall in yards per game, which is ninth to the Chiefs. So it's a lot tighter. The Eagles struggled versus the pass, 29th overall versus the pass of the Chiefs. Not that much great on defense against the pass either, at 18th. And yeah, overall, the Chiefs as well, elite, fourth overall in points allowed, while the Eagles average over 27 points per game. So, look, the Eagles average more points per game than the Chiefs. The Eagles allow less on the defensive side than the Chiefs. And those are statistics that are just kind of gaudy and stuff that I think is overall important to point out. Look, Andy Reid is going to be schemed up, and I think I'm not going to say by the way the Eagles are destroying the Chiefs. I have this game as a close game, as it should be, and I want to actually say that to make a point because everyone thinks if the game is going to be close, that Kansas City is going to pull it out. I actually think, and if you followed some of the Eagles games recently, that the Eagles are going to. I feel like they're going to build some sort of comfortable lead in the fourth quarter. One that is going to kind of make them feel a bit more safe. I do think there's going to be a reaction by Patrick that's going to make it somewhat of a close ball game. But I just think that at the end of the day, the Eagles are going to see it through, similarly to how they did in Super Bowl 52 the against the Patriots. I actually have it as a final score. Let me look. I had it. Eagles 27, Chiefs 23. Um, what was I going to say? Well, yeah, look, Andy Reid is an incredible coach coming off the bye. He's going to have everything schemed up for Nick Fangio's defense overall, absolutely. But I just kind of gotta think that I gotta back the Eagles here because they have just been overall, I think, have been better, more consistent. The record wouldn't say that. Actually, they both, in fact, both won 17 games this season coming into this. But I just like the Eagles, guys, in this game. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video, guys. Make sure, again, as I said at the beginning, that you are liking, you're following us on all the socials. We will be back next week to wrap up this, and keep your eyes on the reels. We are going to be probably here to do our post match reaction to the Super Bowl. It'll be either a very very happy Anton or a very very sad Anton. And if that's the case, the person behind the camera has got me covered. Um, but yeah, it's been a tremendous journey we've had here, and it's couldn't have ended better with the Eagles in the Super Bowl, guys. So enjoy Super Bowl 59. Enjoy Kendrick Lamar and the halftime show as well. It's gonna be a big day here. It's a big, big, big day. Super Bowl Sunday for us is where I'm recording, but there's no football game on the Sunday. It'll be on Monday. Anyway, guys, take care, guys, and we will see you to wrap up after we know who is the winner of Super Bowl 59. Anton out.